It's on. We're on.
Okay, we're doing the music now. Hold up the card.
My modular's still making noise.
Oh.
I forgot to stop that. Okay, it's fading out.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Okay, I'm doing the music now.
Go on.
This is like the most what the heck episode ever.
There we go. So, hello, good evening, good morning, and welcome to another episode of I'm Hex 7, obviously.
I'm also Hex 7.
We're joined.
And we are joined by Hex 7.
We were joined by something then. There was someone else there. So I don't have to arrange things on screen properly, so it's just going to be a grid, and whoever pops in and makes noise does exactly that. There we go.
I think that the screen is still showing the EMS stuff.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, we're safe then.
You gotta hold up the sign again.
We have to, oh, that was a waste of time. Hello. Wait. No, it's upside down. Right, okay, fine. I thought my camera was backwards. Right. What the heck? Intro. Robbie, make some Hex 7 music.
Yeah, make some Hex 7 music.
Boom, 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 boom,
Okay, have we done it?
Yeah.
Okay, we've done it. Right.
Now we've done it. That's right.
I want Frank Sidebottom. Do you know Frank? Do you know of Frank Sidebottom? Anyone? No.
I'm having some audio issues. Stand by.
Oh, okay. Standing.
I mean, continue doing what you're doing, but I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. Okay. Now I can't hear Forrestine.
What if every time somebody joined, we made them sing their rendition of Hex 7?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, okay.
Right. We need more joiners. So, yeah, okay. So someone's going to have to orchestrate.
Oh, you don't have to mask up if you're in your home all by yourself. You don't have to wear the mask.
I thought I'd try and set a good example, and it holds my hair down.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So that you can see the pictures.
So let's take this opportunity. I figured maybe we could all say, what's one thing that that Hex 7 does that really leaves an impression on you, and really, like, when you think about Hex 7, you go, man, that guy is really good at, and then you fill in the blank and say why.
Wubba. Probably Wubba. Is the deep throbby bassy tones and the wub 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 kind of feeling of things comes across very solidly, and I haven't managed to quite replicate that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he frequently does like he has that pyramid sequencer, and he uses multiple clips, and I think it's really interesting the way that he actually sequences like two separate bass lines or maybe more than two, but they sort of interlock with each other and fit in with each other. And he makes these complex bass sounds with really great timbres. So it's pretty awesome. And the wubs, for me, it's not just the wubs, but it's the resonance on the filter that's on the bass that always blows my mind, because it's super resonant and I love it.
I think it's that he's like really good at like build up that like, and then everybody goes nuts when he finally gets to the thing.
Yeah. The timing and spacings is generally spot on. Like I don't have a good ear for that. Generally, it's just bits and pieces of things I've picked up from music I like. Yeah, I don't know where he picks it up from. Influences would be a good quiz point. When we find 7 on this show, I mean,
Enthusiastic Electrons is just saying how he has good audience banter, and I was going to say he's one of Hex 7's one of the only guys I've ever seen do a live stream or do a performance for, like, because I mean obviously you can do anything on EMS, but he performs like for other shows, and he's the only one I've seen that has a microphone and he talks to the crowd live all the time like it's no big deal. I never see anybody else do that.
Yeah, I'm terrified to hook up a mic to talk to people.
No, he's really good at straight up audience engagement type stuff. I found some Hex 7 sounds.
Is that a pocket operator?
It's great. I love these things. It's the arcade one, this one.
Yeah, it's funny because to me that's not what an arcade game sounds like, but that's because I'm less of a Asteroid Space Invaders era and more of a mid to late 80s era arcade game. So like at that point arcade games kind of sounded like MIDI.
Right.
Instead of actual chip tunes, they sounded more like.
There've been some advancements. Yeah. I'm a bit on games. I left the consoles alone for a while. I had an Xbox One for a bit, and that broke, and so I didn't touch it for a while. And then I powered up the Xbox 360 and went through as many of the old as many of the old titles as I could. And the graphics are bad. I mean, like, I've got some more recent games now. I've got a new Xbox One. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and things look nice, and you can stare off into the distance and just kind of get lost in the mountains and trees and stuff like that. And going back a generation, you're staring off at the triangles in the distance still. You're staring off at the lumps of cloudy stuff that get in the way. And you can tell that light is not traveling properly in the environment and stuff like that. But it feels like we're on the edge of, I mean, you can still tell it's games because things are a bit naff, but there's more realism.
One of the things
real.
I missed out on console video games basically from, I never had the Nintendo 64 or the PlayStation 1. So those were all, I never had those. And then I didn't have anything up until this most recent generation. I got the Nintendo Switch and it was really fun and I'm enjoying it. The whole idea of 3D like games is a whole new territory. But I think it's interesting because I've kind of followed video games, kind of like a normal person might follow sports. You know, you don't actually play any sports, you don't actually do anything with it, and you don't actually, you know, you don't know you don't do anything, but you kind of know what's going on. Like I know who won or who's winning what.
You've got your
And
certificates.
yeah, and it's the kind of thing where on TV and in movies, I still see them showing video games sounding like that pocket operator that you just played with.
Yeah.
And video games haven't sounded like that for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. The ability for the commodity machines to be able to do things quickly, cheaply, and easily has increased, and the game developers are going to take advantage of as much as they can to do as much as they can in theory to expand the capabilities of the technology they have, and at some point the audio quality of whatever DAC is used in whatever console just got above your standard hearing range stuff and normal sample rate stuff, and they didn't have to try tricky things anymore. They could just record a sound and dump it on the machine, I guess.
Well, I'm looking forward to the era. I hope we get here. Like, I would love it if we get there very soon, where we get photorealistic graphics that just look like real life, and we get sound that's super easy to do and sounds like super real life, and then people can stop worrying about that and just focus on making a game that's actually fun to play. Because right now people are so interested in graphics and how many polygons per second you can push around, and the lighting and the self-shadowing and all this stuff. And it's like, I just want it to be super photorealistic so that we don't even have to talk about it. And now we can just focus on actual gameplay. But that, I feel like that's an older way of looking at games.
Well, there was a sort of renaissance a few years ago of old 8-bit style games done with recent game engines with extra lighting and neon and, you know, fuzzy stuff like that. But like mobile games normally, nothing all that gigantic.
So let's talk about
Hey,
non-games.
I was gonna say, let's talk about video game soundtrack.
hey,
What's up?
I raised my hand because I was waiting to talk.
Oh, I can't. Oh, I see that. Oh, that's a new. Okay.
Well,
Now,
that totally
I know what
worked.
that means. Go ahead, please speak.
Oh, just that a few years ago, I like went back and
Whenever
started
you have-
playing the games that I never had the attention span to play as a kid, like with like walkthroughs. So I'm still like getting through my Super Nintendo games.
Oh, nice.
And also, like, I really like NetHack, which has no graphics whatsoever. Like,
On the Super Nintendo, are you into the, what was it, Zelda Link from the Past? Or the Ocarina of Time, or was that later? I'm not sure.
no. I really like Earthbound.
I think A Link to the Past was the Super Nintendo one, and the Ocarina of Time was the 3D one that came later.
Oh, okay.
So Earthbound is one of those games that has a really quirky soundtrack, because the samples that are used to make it are like all weird synthesizer tones. They're just, and they're weird notes, but they make the music with interesting samples. It has a really weird soundtrack, but a really catchy soundtrack.
Oh, it's so good. Like, the Dungeon Man music with like the weird springing sound is like so good.
You know, you might be surprised, considering that I tend to make kind of happy music, but one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time is the Quake soundtrack, and it's very industrial and very heavy, and it's all done by Trent Reznor who's Nine Inch Nails. But I think it's just fantastic electronic music.
Was it? Maybe it was. Yeah. No, it's nice having like prominent artists doing game soundtrack stuff. I don't know how frequently that happens anymore.
Yeah.
But we have someone, maybe 2 or 3 people that work in putting sound into games, if I recall correctly. Oh, we might have a new joiner shortly. I didn't have a list of topics, so at this point.
Yeah, we usually have the Google Doc.
Yeah, at this point, I'm lost enough, and I'm going to be relying on looking in the what the heck in general channels.
Well, I'm happy to come up with random ass topics, but if I start talking too much, tell me to shut up.
I tend to follow on with.
Well, welcome to what the not heck. But if you've just joined, we need you to do your best impression of Hex 7's music.
Yeah.
Don't have any hook at the moment, but I this work. A little John Lightning.
Does anybody else's sound really garbled?
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of chop from you right now.
Which helped in this context.
That was very Hex 7 of you. Wow, it's so believable.
But there might be a connection issue.
Because you have to set.
Yeah, we're getting like every other word, unfortunately, noob.
But I'm gonna connect phone.
That is unfortunate, and I hope that gets sorted out because the more the merrier right now.
What module did you find in the couch cushions? Enthusiastic electrons. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm muted. There was a previous module question.
Yeah.
What module beguiles you this week?
Oh, I'm beguiled by something. So there's 2 things. For a long time, I didn't have power for the skiff that has the YM3812 in it, and that's ad-lib. So that's sort of MIDI era, starting to sound MIDI-ish. On
Yeah, I've been eager to hear that Sound Blaster thing.
So that's in. I won't press the play button because it's really noisy and it takes a while to stop. That's in the current sounds and it's quite prominent, but I'm maybe not controlling it in a very good manner, so it's not particularly clear, not particularly obvious what it's doing. And I'm not convinced I've got the volume up on all of the channels. There might be a setting that is having issues with that. But it does produce sound, and it produces some sort of drummy things, which you can change quite a lot. Oh. I've lost audio on my phone.
So, anyway, I joined because of the video game topic a little bit earlier, actually.
Your voice is super, super quiet.
Oh, that might be it.
Interesting level problems now, but although I will say the video is relatively smooth,
Yeah,
and the audio seems relatively smooth.
I approve. That's
Well, I've
Nice work.
reconnected on my phone here.
Oh, hey,
I guess
now
I'm
I can
just
hear you.
gonna. I guess I'm just gonna film my ceiling here
Okay.
for the moment.
What a lovely ceiling fan you have.
Yes, thank you. So you mentioned like this push for better graphics and everything, but really, I think that was always the case. It's just that we don't really think about it so much because with older games because like there was a style to older games that's like imposed by the hardware. Like if you look into like low level how the NES works, like the way that the NES like draws stuff on the screen imposed limitations that created the style of the games. You see what I mean?
Right, but what I mean is like if you're working with, you know, some 8-bit processor running at like 1.5 megahertz, it doesn't there's no possible way you could ever hope to create a convincing 3D world that looked believable. So it's like you would never be, nobody would ever go, oh, was that real life? Oh no, that was just the NES. Like that's just not possible. So it's not even in the realm of possibility. But now as we inch ever closer to that, it becomes like this push to make more and more particles and make more and more realistic models and I almost I just wish we could hurry up and get there.
It's too bright.
Oh,
The orbs. But I did want to bring it back to modular. Hearing about that Sound Blaster, or not, I call it a Sound Blaster module because that's in my mind that's what I think of it as. Is it's that Yamaha sound chip. That's the you know 90s PC sound card sound.
yeah, yes.
And I would love to hear those sounds, but processed through a Eurorack system. I would also love to hear. There's a Commodore 64 one that uses the Commodore 64 SID chip, which has such a distinct quality to it. I'd love to hear that one as well. But I don't have either one, and it's weird because I don't have any intention of getting either one because that's not really how the direction I want to go. But I do think it's a fascinating sound.
It's all a bit square or clipped or shortened or divided somehow. I don't know. I don't know what the mechanics are on the chip. I don't know how the oscillations are created. That's probably a deep.
Yeah, I've tried programming. I've tried doing chip tune stuff for the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive, and that is an interesting sound chip because it's all about FM. So everything is FM operators, and they interact and make these weird tones, and it's really an interesting challenge to even make anything usable on that. Has anybody else done any like chip tune work on with like old school chip tune hardware?
Only that I have liked a lot of stuff that I've heard. So there was an artist called Luckhash, Lukhash, I think. And I was very much into their stuff for a while. And I don't know where I picked that up from. I didn't delve into chip tunes and get knowledge of the scene or anything. I just found one or two artists and bound to them, kind of.
Yeah, I'm sort of out of touch. I don't know what the scene is like. I don't know the famous artists in the chiptune world. I approached it from a purely hardware side, and then I don't know. I guess I haven't done my due diligence, and I need to like discover what artists are out there.
In my experience, a lot of chiptune stuff tends to be like oriented towards like game-related music.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like
guess
you
it
can
feels like
find
that's
like
where it came from.
remakes of boss battles themes and stuff like that online. I have a friend who's really into that.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I've certainly tried to recreate songs that I'm fond of for the NES sound chip. But one of the things that the reason that I'm more in love with modular than I am with with chiptune is because you end up programming chiptune on a computer, and there's no knobs to tweak, and there's no levers to pull, and there's no cables to plug, and that's not what I'm looking. I want that. I want to feel like a mad scientist with a bunch of blinking lights in front of me. And that's okay. Here's the question. This leads me to a question. How important is the visual component, the aesthetic component, how it looks, how a module looks? How important is that to you, in some way? Like, do you really care if a module was really ugly and had no lights, but had a great sound? Would you be a little disappointed, or would you be really disappointed? Like, where would you fall in that?
3.
Out of what?
I think I'm going to answer that by showing you something with my camera.
Careful now.
You've got your cardboard riser back there supporting the back, and
Nice.
some foam board cheeks. So I can't really say that I'm too much of a stickler for aesthetics.
No, I've got to say each module, or more like each manufacturer has their own kind of preferred set of aesthetics, and you sort of go for one or you don't. But ultimately, I land on functionality. I think like that's the primary driver.
Yeah, I'm monitoring the YouTube stream, and it was a bunch of nuns. It was like a tab crash thing. That's
Oh,
funny.
Yeah. I think we're
We're
still
back.
on. Yes. Hello
are we
again.
back?
Yeah. Well.
Boom, 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 boom,
Do do
boom,
do
boom.
do 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 do.
Okay.
Beep
You
boop beep
everybody,
boop
what the
beep.
heck? Right.
Priceless. This is definitely a what the heck episode for
Um,
sure.
I was gonna say, I was just having this conversation the other day. If there's like 2 options for a module and one of them is cute, I will get the cute one 100% of the time. And I don't like, and also I want flowers on everything.
Yeah, I know that it's very popular to have all black panels. And then failing that, it's popular to have silver or gray panels. But I have to say that my local florist module, which number one, it's very unique, but just in the sound, because it's a weird chorusy resonator thing. But I love that it's green and yellow, and it feels like right out of the Austin Powers version of what the 60s was. And it just stands out as this really unique module, and I think it's really pretty.
Oh. Did that work? No, not properly.
What is the goal here?
I was just seeing there was an option on the Jitsi thing that said share a YouTube URL. So it tried to embed the stream that we're currently watching, and it only managed to get a snapshot. It didn't embed properly.
Video feedback, huh?
Yeah,
That would have been cool.
I'm getting video unavailable on my phone here. So that's interesting.
It says connection good from you, and participant has stopped the camera. I really don't know how to operate this. I'm sorry. Can someone speak?
But it's
Yeah,
on
I
my
can.
phone.
I can speak. I'm gonna move on to the next question, unless anybody else has any burning things to talk about.
Oh,
No,
I was
let's
gonna
do more
say,
technical difficulties.
Forestine, I think having flowers on it is a little bit niche, don't you think?
No.
Flowers on it. Do you mean the local florist?
Well, I want to do like a rack that only has flowers on it, but I don't mind if it takes years.
Oh, you need lots of handmade panels or something.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a market there is for that.
There's at least some market for aftermarket panels, because I have purchased a replacement panel for my voltage block and for my variegate sequencer, because I had the gray panel, and the molecular panels were okay, but there's these black ones that kind of make them look like a make noise panel, and I think that they look so much cooler with a black panel with a gold make noise aesthetic, that sort of scribbled almost like a runic language on it. I think it looks great, and I love voltage block and variegate too. They're in almost every patch always.
Yeah,
The
it seems
voltage
like
block.
some of the, or like a lot of the aftermarket panels that I see are like, for example, 4MS has panels that, alternate panels they sell that just black out their modules or make it monochrome instead of the colorful.
Well,
The colorful ones are nice.
the default white 4MS stands out quite a lot compared to other manufacturers being silver or black. So that is quite a choice, but they're on PCB. It's not aluminium panels, so kind of
Right.
they can do quite a lot, I guess, in that context.
I guess then you're getting into like silk screening.
They had to make a choice about something, I guess, and it didn't have a natural surface that they wanted. There's a few others, like the Mystic Circuits tree, I think, has come out with a purple PCB thing, and it just uses the color of the PCB, and it's a nice color, so they use that.
So let me ask you about that, because I've seen the tree, I've seen it before, and there was like another module, like branches or leaf or something to carry forth the metaphor of a tree. And I'm curious, is it what is the tree? What is the leaf? What are we talking about when we talk about that module?
As I understand it, the tree is a nice sequential switch. So you've got 8 ins, 1 out, or 1 in, 8 outs. And you've got a thing that lets you tell it to go like various ways. I think there's 3 inputs for controlling the direction or the step that it's going to go to next.
Okay. Yeah, I've been thinking about getting a sequential switch for a while. I thought it would be really cool to have 2 patterns going. This is in my imagination, because I don't have a sequential switch, but I would have 2 patterns going, and the first pattern would be a very basic, maybe I'm imagining a drum beat here. So I'm imagining a 4 on the floor kick drum pattern. So that would be the first sequential. The first channel would be just that. The output would always go to this some kind of kick drum sound. But then the second input would be another sequence that would be like a crazy person sequence. So basically, I would have 4 beats or 8 beats or whatever of a standard drum beat, and then the next 4 or 8 beats would be a crazy person pattern drum fill. And it would go back and forth between the regular and the crazy, which is that's what I want to do in music.
I've been having switch problems because I keep like going, oh, I think the shifty does that, and then it turns out it does it in the opposite direction to the direction I need it to do that thing. And so like I need it to send like a different thing to one output. I don't want it to like jumble the outputs. And there's a cat yelling at me.
That sounds Canadian.
What?
He needs love.
Output. When you said outputs, I heard
It sounded Canadian.
Outputs. Sorry, I'm not.
And I see like weird polyhedral dice, like maybe something 12-sided.
Yeah, what the hell?
These are my special.
Look, if you're gonna stick random objects in front of the camera, I can out random you anytime.
Oh, right, that sounds like a challenge.
Aggressive snow machine.
I don't have anything interesting around me in my bedroom. There's nothing interesting.
Telegraph pole insulator.
It looks like you're frozen, Forrestine.
No.
That looks like vodka. Alex, where are you? Alex.
Correction, it's gin.
Oh.
Am I unfrozen?
I think you're frozen still.
No, you're still very frozen.
There is no good video conferencing solution. I'm convinced of that. I can't remember. This came out of a projector or something. Weird glass.
Is that like a special lens or
Whoa,
something?
I'm really frozen. BRB.
Okay.
I got nothing interesting around me.
Oh, okay. So I'm just quickly going to scan back through the chat and mention Benjamin. Why is he not on this?
Yeah, good question. Talking about the Erica synth drum sequencer. Now I've been interested in that, but I feel like one thing that I've been hesitant to do is get a sequencer that is a gate sequencer that's a very complex gate sequencer. Like I don't want to get a module. I'm hesitant to get something like the Metron or the Erica synth drum sequencer where you just have a bunch of steps and you program a bunch of static gates like in a 64-step sequence. I fell in love with my Varigate. It's only 8 steps, but you can choose the probability for each of the steps. So typically on beats 1 and 5, I do 100% probability, but then you can choose a lower probability on some of the other steps. So I guess the question is, how does everybody else handle sending gates and sequencing gates and sending gates?
Oh, well, so...
Or triggers, same thing.
Right. Go ahead. And
well, I have a couple... I have a couple different things. I have a BeatStep Pro that's kind of around. It kind of floats around. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. I also have a Varigate, like you said, and then sometimes I use marbles. So it just kind of depends on my mood, really.
Can you do probabilities on the BeatStep Pro?
You can. I don't remember if it's just for the sequencer channels or if the drum channels can do it too. I just don't remember.
Okay, but I guess let me refine my question. Can you do per beat, per note probabilities, or is it just a probability like a 50% chance over the entire channel?
I don't really remember. I think it's the entire channel. And then you can like have it quantized to a scale. So it'll make like variations on your pattern.
Right.
I don't remember if you can do per note. It doesn't appear like you could. I don't know. I'd have to check the manual.
Yeah. Benjamin is saying that I would love the Erica synth drum sequencer, which is it's a trigger sequencer. It's not a I mean, it doesn't have to play drums. It just sends triggers. But
Oh, I rarely use triggers for drums.
well, how do you do it then?
Well, incidentally, I end up using my drum voices through rings as synth voices. So those get triggered. I also tend to use like triggers into like envelope generators just for like wiggling wave folders and stuff like that. Triggers are just kind of my generic event, really. I rather like the Buchla perception in that.
Yeah, I also I don't. It's kind of weird to me to think about drums. So I learned there's this whole way that people do drums in Eurorack, which seems in my mind seems counterintuitive to what a synthesizer should be. Because when I first started doing percussion, I had one module. It's called Bacillus Iteratas Alter, and I plugged voltage block into basically every input, and I made an entire drum kit from this one module, and it seemed like that was the coolest way to make drums. But I've come to learn that most people have a kick drum module or a snare drum module or a hi-hat module, and they send separate triggers to separate modules to make separate sounds, almost like they're triggering samples. And it seems very, I don't want to say cheating, but it feels like there's a certain coolness, there's a certain modular synthesizer-y coolness when you do it all with one module just by modulating parameters.
So that kind of ties into like a DIY project that I'm trying to work on. It's going rather slowly, but the inspiration of it was actually having a Chemy's Taiko, because it's an FM synth, which makes it very, very finicky to like try to get any kind of repeatability from it. So the idea was to have like different trigger inputs where each trigger input basically represents a state on the output. And so like whenever you put a trigger into one, the outputs change to that state, and the state is just kind of controlled by a grid of knobs. If you can visualize that.
Yeah, I can picture it. It's basically you have a set state of voltages that are, the parameters are set a certain way thanks to a set of voltages. And when you send trigger 1, it's this set of voltages. And when you send trigger 2, it's another set of voltages. I've done a similar thing with voltage block, but I did it manually, where there's 8 channels on voltage block, and I would just push button 1 for basically preset 1, and I push button 2 for preset 2. It's like a degenerate version, or maybe a better version. I don't know, but a crappy version of there's that 16N fader bank.
Yeah.
Where it's just 16 faders at output voltage. It's like that. I treat it like that, but with presets. Fader bank. Where it's just 16.
Echo.
You seem good.
Hey, I'm not frozen anymore.
Yep, no, you're moving. I'm wondering if it's my client or it could be connection issues across the board. I don't know. So we've lost Forrestine, I'm sad to say.
You gained me somehow by mistake.
Yeah, I was going to say, Forrestine, you changed.
Well, I
one in, one out.
be the same.
Oh yeah, you've got to
Schmooster
do
asked
your
me to join for some reason. I don't know.
you've
What
got to do
the
your
heck?
best impression of the what the heck music.
Yeah, give us your best what the heck intro or outro.
What the heck?
Oh, yeah, no, that was actual sound.
Oh, you didn't want sound?
No, that was good. Yeah, the last few have done it with their mouths and gone beep boop boop boop, and similar.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop, beep. Does that count? I don't know.
Yeah,
Perfection. That was perfect.
You've woken me up.
What's that?
You've woken me up.
I don't know about that.
I was actually asleep for the first 47 minutes.
So before we run out of time,
Sequencing. Just one last point on the sequencing bit and the drums and stuff like that. All thoughts like that have led me back to the nerd sec, and also commenting on the chiptune stuff, as Cauldron of Bats mentioned in the chat earlier. NerdSec seems like a really good match in modular for making chiptune stuff happen.
It's an actual tracker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like that, which, oh yes. Don't drop it.
NerdSec kind of scares me, to be honest. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Well, no, I've spent a long time thinking it's too complex and I don't like trackers. And in my computing life, I've never really adapted to trackers or learned how to use them. But it sort of makes enough sense. You go down the list and you see where in the list you are, and that's the thing that's getting played, and then you arrange patterns and sequences and some modulation. So it kind of, if you break it down a little bit, it doesn't feel too complex.
Yeah, it's nothing to be scared of. It's very simple. You have your arrow keys here, that that's everything, and then you have an OK, and you have a this OK, and then you have shift, and then you have start, stop, page up, page down. And that's it. So it's pretty simple. Then you have a couple function buttons up here for copy and paste and delete, setup, menu. And in terms of capability, I've said it before, but there's just no beating it. I mean, you have 6 channels, and each channel has volt per octave, or it can just be CV. It has a trigger or a gate associated with it, and it has a general modulation output for additional CV for each channel. In addition to that, you have 2 sampler outputs. Each one can play up to 2 samples at the same time, so that's 4 samples. And that, with the latest software update, it can do FM synthesis too, so you can load in some waveforms and have them FM each other. It's insane, but the reason that this is not in my main rack is because you use these buttons for everything, and that's not what I want to do. Or the alternative is you use the Sega controller, which is awesome, by the way. It works really well.
But yeah, like using a computer, you're limited to the user interface and how it behaves, and that might not be what you want out of your modular system. But you were asking about drums and ratcheting and things like that, or, well, not ratcheting, but different patterns and how you might use a sequential switch. I'm kind of coming right back to coding all of that up in the NerdSec and having some CV input to it for external modulation. But to do it analog style, it feels like you need a lot of modules, like many modules.
Yeah, I will say if you're going down the NerdSeek route, I just want to make sure that you know this. If you really want a lot of triggers, You don't need the more triggers module. As cool as it is to have, it has a great interface. It has a great grid view, and there's 16 triggers. It's very cool. But I found that when I was using the NerdSeek, I would typically use like 2 or 3 or 4 channels, but I wouldn't use all of the outputs. And I could get plenty of triggers with the base module itself.
Right. I mean, there's 6 channels to choose from to start off with. So if you're controlling 4 drums and 2, like a bass line and a lead, then you're kind of covered. Plus samples. Oh
Yeah.
no, you're frozen again.
But I've got 6 oscillators here to control.
I mean, but that's the thing. Each channel has 3 outputs, so you might not use all 3 outputs for each voice, which means that you could use the CV output on channel 1, the CV and the trigger output for one voice, but then use the modulation output for a trigger on something else, and that kind of goes all the way down. So that's just my opinion.
Well, I've definitely reached a point where I feel like I can't easily orchestrate the modular setup that I have, and I'm definitely looking for something to help me with that at this point. But up until now, I've been very focused on learn the fundamentals, learn how to do bits and pieces without that easy method of control. And I feel like I've learned stuff, but I've mostly learned how the various modulations work and how the various oscillators sound and what you can make them sound like. But yeah, there's nothing that I can easily drop in place and know that I've set up some choice patterns and have them play out. It's all a little bit random or a little bit straightforward at the moment. I will go off on one if allowed. Don't let me.
I did want to. There is a question I wanted to ask, and actually, you led me to it perfectly, because you talked about learning, and I think none of us have been. None of us here are like experts that have been doing synthesizer stuff for like 50 years. But I would say also none of us are completely new. We all know what an LFO is. So I guess the question I would want to ask is what have you? I don't know how to phrase it, but what did, when you first started thinking about synthesizers, what did you not realize? What have you learned now that is so fundamental and so important, but that wasn't clear to you at all when you were somewhat of an outsider?
Mine was envelopes don't control actual volume. That was a huge thing for me, learning that an ADSR controls the amplifier, not the actual audio. And it probably, I was working professionally for like years before I understood that.
Like the envelope doesn't plug into the sound source. Well, I guess it could if you wanted laser beams, but
well, that's the thing is when you work with a pre-built synth, the ADSR just affects the volume. So you just kind of assume when you go from that hardware synth to the modular, I should plug the synth into the ADSR because that's what's controlling the volume. And that was when I saw that wasn't connected. was that eureka moment. And I'm sorry, I have food like showing up here any second, so I'm kind of walking outside to to meet the person. So I may disappear here in a moment.
Hey, it's nice.
But
We don't get to see the outside much these days.
So,
yeah, I'm tempted
might
to show you
be-
where I live, but also I don't want to dox myself.
For our 10 viewers.
But I know, but like,
But it'll be immortalized on YouTube.
exactly.
Everyone
Although I think
will
Robbie
come
knows
and-
kind of where I live. Or
It's
we
all
talked
tourists
to-
you need to look out for.
What's that?
It's all the tourists you need to look out for. Just sort of.
Yeah. Well, there's
stealing
kind
into
of
your house
a
and
view.
taking pictures. Oh wow,
So
that's nice.
yeah, that's kind of hard to beat. So
So where are you?
I'm in
Right.
Los Angeles.
Okay. Not exactly.
Los Angeles is pretty big. I'm not
Right.
spoiling things by telling you that.
Yeah,
But
and
you
interestingly, when depending on where you're from, when people, even people that live in this part of the world, they say LA, but they mean all of Los Angeles County, which is made up of a bunch of cities.
Yeah. So
right. So Robbie's question was what you learned about synthesis
Yes.
via modular as compared to traditional synth. Right. Just that it does give me the things that I was missing. So there were two factors in my approach to modular, apart from being told about it and being aware that a friend has some modular gear. So I've got some sort of peripheral access to the stuff. I was going in a synth shop every month, wanting to spend my spare bit of money, which was around 100 to 200 a month. Now I picked up a pocket operator and Volca keys and some square Waldorf sound making devices and a filter, all non-modular stuff, but all within that price range. So I sort of picked out some of the things that were relevant in the synth shop and hit a kind of things are going to start costing 400 or 500 barrier. If I want to explore more, then the price starts to go up for a single unit. And I ended up with maximum spend of about 500. And that's managing to save a couple of months money. But I'm really likely to go and spend that money on something else if I don't get a toy, if that makes any sense. It'll just go on food or something. So System 1M and the Mother 32 were my introduction to you're able to plug things in differently. I think I got the System 1M first because it was more shiny, but I can't remember.
That answers my first question.
Now, the things I've learned is bits and pieces along the way. It's like, does this unit have the option of doing something which I want? And if it doesn't, what does? And go off on that exploration and find that you can come up with about 5 modules that you want for a given purpose. And they don't actually get expressed in any traditional synthesizer. So that's the thing which really still grabs me. You can put together a small set of things and have it be cohesive for what you want and express things nicely, or have all of the sockets and options that you need. And it can be smaller or about the same size or about the same cost ultimately, maybe a little bit more than a traditional synth. And many traditional synths, you don't use what they have. You use what you want out of what they have, which is a 10% subset maybe, except for the basic normal controls. Going off on one. Don't let me.
So let me dig into that. You said it gave you what you were missing, and I just want to make sure what exactly were you missing?
Oh, the ability to get more stuff on a regular basis and have it all work together. So the constraint with traditional synthesizers has been the computer so far and MIDI channels, and communicating through half cable, half virtual methods. And modular just feels more electrically solid in that context. You know what you're plugging into what, and the information that goes down those channels is it's normally quite easy to know what that is. It doesn't necessarily have too many options behind it. I mean, some modules you really can change a lot of the output. You can confuse yourself with how it's configured, and that's an area I don't really like getting into. But those modules are helpful for reducing the amount of space that you need, and there's a balance.
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying is that when you get a non-modular synth, you have a box, and it might have some really good stuff built into the box, and there might even be some interesting internal routing that you are capable of making use of built into the box. But that's it. That's all you've got. And you could buy another box and hope that it also has some cool internal stuff. But with the modular synth, it's almost kind of infinitely expandable because everything can potentially plug into everything, and you can get a new module and plug that in, and you can just keep adding to it. And there's something kind of interesting about being able to tailor it to exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, with traditional synths, I wanted to get outputs of that internal stuff, and they're just not available until you start getting into semi-modular, and you see the lineup of the thing, and you can make it make the noise, and then you see the outputs and the inputs, and you can make them change that way instead. So it's a semi-modular is a useful tool to bridge the gap conceptually, whichever way you go about it.
Totally. I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking. Does anybody else have any other topics? We're actually over time, which this hour flew by.
Well, I think I have some input on this. I might be unique here in that my modular is my first synth. And the reason for that is I'm not really that interested in the idea of like a synthesizer as a digital organ, is how I've heard it expressed before. So a little context. I'm really more of a tech person than a music person.
Mm-hmm.
Same. I think there's a lot of people, both in modular and others, that are like music people who are fascinated by technology. That might be somebody who's a synthesist. That might be a guitarist with a bit too big of a pedal board for his own good. But I feel like I'm really the opposite, being like someone who's very technologically inclined and interested in music. So I kind of, like I was saying for a long time, I've kind of picked up bass, mostly poorly though. But like modular is really where like I can combine like my ability to like design a system and like and that sort of thing with music.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. There's a big part of what makes modular so fun is that just to have a functioning instrument takes a ton of planning and execution and technical skill, and you haven't even made a sound or played a note, but just creating a cohesive system is an exercise in and of itself, and it's an engineering exercise, and it feels really, it's really fun, and it's part of the joy, and it's completely invisible to people who haven't participated in it because they just see your rack of modules and they think, oh yeah, look, okay, yeah, you got the one that makes a noise, you got the one that has the reverb, and you got the one that plays the pattern, and there's like a koto or something. What am I looking at there?
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you guys. The chat was asking what I just moved out of the way. It's called a gucheng.
Oh, nice.
What's that?
Nice, very nice.
It's sort of like a Chinese version of a zither. Anyway, they were just asking what it was. So I was just showing you. I totally didn't mean to distract you guys. Sorry about that.
Awesome thing, but yeah, so it's in that way though, in keeping with that sort of aesthetic of it's an engineering exercise and not a it's not learn how to play the guitar really well, it's engineer something to be really good. That's one of the reasons that I really like everything to be in the rack. I don't plug in a guitar or a bass I don't have a keyboard that I plug into my modular rack. I don't use MIDI. I don't use a computer because I like the analog engineering that goes into making it play what it plays, and I think that's a big part of it. Is the engineering side of me wants to. I don't want to fall. If I wanted to play guitar, I'd play guitar. If I wanted to sequence stuff to make it sound perfect. Is that a four-sided Rubik's Cube? What am I looking at? You got so many good little toys. He's got the best little toys. I feel like that's from a Batman movie.
It's a Rubik's invention. It's a bit naff. It's two things that transform from cubes into stars. Completely unrelated to anything. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I would just like to say Forrestine has called me out. I do have a micro brute that I got before I got my rack. I got a micro brute to see if I was even interested in synthesizer stuff, and I have used the CV out before. I have plugged the CV out of that micro brute into an oscillator before, and I have used it in that way. But it's very rare, and it's not. And one thing I've definitely learned is that I am not a good enough keyboard player to use it in any meaningful context.
I can't play any instruments. That's another thing that modular attracted me with, or being able to tell something, to rely on something to just do real notes. So just tell it some up, some down, but play notes. Like I don't have to work out where on the device to make a note. I just tell it to make a note.
That's funny because I do play an instrument. I'm a saxophone player, or at least I used to be. Kind of freelance professionally, I guess you could say. But it's, if I wanted to play the saxophone, I'd go play the saxophone. I've seen a guy take I saw one guy who has a modular synth set up, and he has a MIDI wind instrument, which basically is an electronic saxophone that sends out MIDI signals. And he hacked it to send CV, and he uses that to control his synthesizer. And when I first saw it, I thought, wow, that's really, really cool. But I would never want to do that, because if I wanted to play my saxophone, I would go play my saxophone. I don't want to play my saxophone. I want to play my modular synthesizer.
I suspect ultimately, if modular stuff didn't really exist, I would end up circuit bending. I'd have wanted to get into the bits and pieces where the different things happen and make them go somewhere else. So yeah, there's technical aspects, definitely, and you can come at it from a very non-musical perspective and get something that approaches what you might call music.
I would absolutely call it music. There's no qualifiers needed. It's just music.
Well, I would say for a very long time, the only thing I could get my systems to do, whether it's VCV rack or something else, was scraping noises, or something distinctly non-musical that you can show to someone and they can say, that's not music. I actually did that for my sister-in-law. I was like, here, listen to this. I made this. This was maybe 2 years ago. And they just went, not music. That's not music.
Well,
they should come to some new music concerts where there's a lot of crazy contemporary classical music where they would be like, no, that wasn't music either. I've taken my friends to those concerts, and some of them come away just totally excited, and other ones look at me and they said, what is this? So it's a tough.
I think it's an interesting philosophical slippery slope, because my patches tend to be kind of conventional sounding, at least musically, and it's really interesting because my wife has no interest in synthesizers at all, and she'll do me the honor of listening to my patch for about 5 seconds and then go, it's a little annoying. And then that's the end. And it's like, to her, it's barely, it doesn't even really classify as music. And I would say mine is some of the most in the box, as traditional as you can get, to sounding like what people could mean in the most asshole sense of what music has to be. And even she doesn't think it's music. So there's no limit to what you can denounce.
Also very true.
Denounce everything. I think your face is frozen again, Robbie.
I'm just holding really, really still, practicing my ventriloquism.
You did well. Very well.
It always freezes. I guess I emote a lot because every freeze frame of me is a really funny one.
Yeah, you're looking up at something, like a little bit scared, maybe. I'm just scanning back through What the Heck channel. Oh, right. So we were supposed to say something like, this is What the Heck with special guest hosts.
Oh, did we do introductions? I cut out for a minute at the beginning.
Yeah, not so much. So
we can do outroductions.
Outroductions. There we go.
So have we got another thing that we want to give a little chat on, or shall we go towards rolling the dice or closing the thing?
Yeah, I'm out of topics, so I think we should wrap it up before it goes on forever.
I can't use words, and I think I need food.
I need to eat dinner and get back to work soon, so I should probably take off too.
So final topic. Show us the coolest thing in your room.
Oh,
and give a little outro or outroduction with it.
The coolest thing in my room?
the coolest thing in my room.
Should it be modular synth related or no?
Anything.
So I have here, this is Pinky, and he is a pink panther, and he is the guardian of my modular synthesizer. He keeps the spirits away, and only lets the good voltages in. So that's the coolest thing in my room is Pinky. Also, yeah, I have an air conditioner. It's awesome. I love having an AC unit, but you know what? I rarely turn it on because I live in an awesome place that has really awesome weather. Although it did get a little cold last night, I had to actually close the window.
That's kind of crazy.
I can't find the coolest thing in my room. I've got a GUR, if you know what a GUR is.
Like from Invader Zim?
Yes.
Never heard of it.
No. I have a plastic GUR. It's not real. But I can't find it. Anyway, I was trying to show you my bike because that's the coolest thing in my room.
The first thing I was going to show you guys was, of course, oh, here's my Buchla music easel and card. But
very cool. That is very cool.
Fancy.
But then I was like, oh, but that's kind of what we always look at. So I also study Kung Fu, so I was going to show you guys my butterfly swords.
Oh, yes. Those are
lately.
Wing Chun?
Well, so Wing Chun tends to use slightly shorter ones. I study Hung Ga.
Okay.
So we tend to use slightly longer ones. So mine are a little short for me. They should extend out to about here. But Wing Chun, they don't like it to go past their elbow when they flip it around. So, yeah, there we go.
So I think this is one of the coolest things in my room. It's an art piece.
Is that what they call a floating bridge?
It's very floating. Yeah. Very floaty. Where am I? Yeah, that's better. There I am. I've got some things in here. I don't know if you can see any useful stuff.
I was going to say, I know some of the story behind that guitar being the way it is, but I'm going to go ahead and pretend that in my mind, this is what I want to believe, is that you got really hungry one day and you just took a big bite out of it and said, good guitar. That's what I want it to be.
Basically, yeah. It was very, very close to that. So, yeah. Real talk stuff. I have lots of ups and downs sometimes. In that situation, I was on aripiprazole, and the aim of aripiprazole was to control irritability. So what I think it did was to suppress irritability 95% of the time and stack it all up into that 5%. And going on and off, the thing didn't help, and eventually, I think it was halfway through December, I stopped that completely, gave it a few weeks, and ended up with restless leg syndrome about a month later. It just kind of switched on. So I don't know if they're connected events, but I've gone from medicated angry to being generally okay to, oh, I can't sleep because I'm in pain. So I've shifted from mental problems to physical problems for a while, which is fantastic. The medicated RLS is dealing with generalized anxiety, so I'm in a much more comfortable place and my head buzzes less, if that's a good way of putting things. But it's a 3 times a day dosage, and it feels like it sort of goes up and down in levels. Anyway, it's not fun approaching your doctors with any kind of psychiatric question, because they'll throw something at you and say, try this, and it really just could do any ton of things. And I'm not very good at communicating things back, so things tend to lapse and intensify, probably.
Well, do you think you're, I don't know how to ask this. Are things now it seems like things have been kind of moving in a better direction, because the anger thing isn't happening, the leg thing isn't happening. Like now you're kind of that something is getting balanced out a little bit.
Yeah. That's the general feeling. The hope I have is that the restless legs thing is reasonably short term, and in a few months I can just drop medication. But there's a chance that I might request to go to stay on a low dose of that to keep dealing with anxiety. But I'm not sure. But it's a slightly more positive future at the moment.
Well, I think we're about a half an hour over time. I don't know if we want to end the show. I don't have any
Totally.
interesting modular things. Oh, I did want to say I got a new module. I got a Manus Ateritas. Still learning how to tame it, but it's an awesome beast. And I need to figure out how to work it into my case. That's what I have for the future.
What's your newest module, Anton?
Let's see. I just put in a TON H3 from Instro, and a Harmonic Shift oscillator, and the Tokyo Tape Machine 291 filter for my booklet easel. All kind of came in the same week, so those are to me they kind of are all the same as my newest modules. And I was really surprised actually with the TON H cubed, however you want to say it, it really takes sounds and squishes them in an oddly pleasant way. So I was pretty happy to get that one, and they're cheap, relatively cheap and small-ish space. So yeah, it's a cool, odd module.
So who's the Harmonic Oscillator from?
It's called New System Instruments. They're a small company in either I can't remember if they're in Oregon or in Washington. And I had the case, I had it in my case recently, but I put it back in. I pulled my DPO out, and then I decided I needed it for this Modular World gig, so I pulled it out. I can grab it real quick.
Got it.
It's a cool little module.
I've laid eyes on that, I think.
Yeah, so really the two things that you play with the most are the harmonic shift and then sort of the level amount. So they call it stride is the harmonic shift. What I've found, at least for me, is that it's very hard to go between certain overtone frequencies. Like it will be really, really tonal for a moment, and then there will be this area where all the harmonics are misaligned, and so it sounds very metallic and kind of clanky, and then it will sort of like get back in line with itself, and then so the in-between spots I'm not as fond of, but then like the spots where it does come into tune with itself, it's really beautiful. And then the it's like there's two outputs, and one is like offset by 90 degrees phase from the other one, so you get these really wide, interesting stereo effects from it as well. So I want to come back to it in a bit when I have more time to play with it and see if I can find something, a way to use it a little better. And the pure sine wave on it is really amazing. So I liked that. If you're looking for a really good sine to noise oscillator, it's a really good sine to noise oscillator.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It's a vintage Watchman. Oh man.
Oh, nice.
Is that's black and white, right? Or I should say grayscale.
Yes. So right here, it's got about a 1.5-inch screen here, and I've taken this apart here, and down in the bottom, there's a little projector, some kind of tube thing, and on that tube, far away from where anyone would be able to read it, is a little radiation hazard symbol. So,
yeah, there's like a xenon tube in there or something like that.
Something like that. And
Yeah.
it's just a little, and it projects onto the screen. The screen is like semi-reflective, and you can see it's curved. So yeah.
But that doesn't have like that could pick up broadcast television, but only analog television.
Right.
So like you can't watch anything after
now.
2009.
It's a wee bit useless now unless you want to get a transmitter.
Actually, I don't know if this is true in your area, but in my area, there's still some networks that broadcast analog, but they're like weird religious programming. What have we got going on? What are we looking at here?
Just because the Wing Chun knives came on. Well, they're not Wing Chun, sorry. I forget the word. I realised I've got a 3-section staff. And I thought maybe that's a relevant cool. Oh yes, there we go.
I'm not in the club. I got a boken in the corner, but that's Japanese. That's a whole nother thing.
Which one?
I have a boken for like it's like a wooden katana.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different practice.
Kind of. I mean, all martial arts have, I don't know. I have a whole pile of weapons in the corner. It's
the long stick method seems to be pretty common around.
The long stick.
Yeah. Surprisingly, a long stick is really good for
it's
for
universal.
hitting people with, right?
Anyway, we should probably end it here.
Yeah.
I think we should probably find another couple hours to talk about, but
Save it for the next episode. Put up the
I
title
also have
card.
a unicycle.
What's that?
I also have a unicycle.
Wow. I've always wanted a unicycle.
You could have mine. I can't use it.
I can't use it either, and my guess is that it's probably not in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, no, it might take a while to get there.
Yeah. How about riding it here?
Get wet.
Oh man.
We need the title card, and then we can all do the outro music.
Did we all tell did we tell people who we are? Did we care?
Oh yeah, we got to do the quick outro. I'll start. Hi, goodbye. I'm Robbie. I have a Pink Panther. I like to do a lot of really melodic patching on my synthesizer, and my favorite color is green.
Wow.
My internet cut out. It's a sign.
What is that? Pocket
Is this our
operator
outro
edition.
music?
That's the outro music. That's the outro.
Heck yeah.
There we go.
That was
Right.
impressively musical
Yeah,
for all the
I'm trying to
flailing
find
happening.
stickers or something cool to hold up for the. I don't have a what the heck.
Oh, right. Let's put the.
Too close.
What? Like, what the move? What the move?
Best episode. Boom, 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 We miss you, Heck, but we did our best.
There we are. Okay, I will work on closing this down and taking it off the screen and all of that stuff by pressing leave.